How's it going, you guys? Today we are continuing our little mini series of the good and the bad and the reworking, or the reworked. I don't really have a title picked up for this. So today we're taking a look at the heavy. This is the last one that we're going to do for this little mini series here, where we just kind of like, without a script, go over all of the classes and just kind of look at what's good and what's bad and kind of what could change. So yeah, obviously today we're taking a look at the heavy, so we're just going to go ahead and take a look at the weapons selection over here and then move into the perk tree and talk about the signature ability and the perks in a little bit of detail, kind of what's good and what's bad. You get the gist of it by now, I'm sure. And if you're new here, welcome in. Feel free to go and check out the other videos that I did. Some of them kind of just have the same recycled points made, but I do go over all the perks, so it kind of also doubles as a bit of a build guide setup. You know, if you're like looking at the perk tree and feeling a little overwhelmed, I pretty much in detail go through all of the different perk trees for all of the different classes and kind of, you know, subsequently tell you like what's good and what's bad and what you can run, you know, what's better over other things. So anyways, let's get into this. So we're gonna go ahead and look at the primary weapons. The heavy is a very, very lucky man in the form of having some of the most insane Xenos and heretic slaying weapons in his arsenal. I don't really know why they added the heavy bolt rifle. I mean, I know why, but there's no reason for you. This is just a little bit of a sidebar. There's no reason for you to ever run the heavy bolt rifle on heavy when like the tactical has it as an option. I don't really see why they did that, really. I don't know. I don't want to say this for like tactical mains who love the heavy bolt rifle, but I think that the heavy bolt rifle maybe needs like a big buff and then taken off of the tactical and just kept exclusively on heavy or something, because why is this here if the tactical has it? But anyways, that's not what this is about. We've got other fish to fry in the form of, you've got the heavy bolter, you've got the heavy plasma incinerator, you've got the multi-melta and the pyre cannon. All very beefed up versions of other weapons that you see on other classes, like the regular plasma incinerator and the regular pyre cannon, or whatever it's called, and the regular multi-melta on the vanguard and tactical and things like that. Except these things are fucking ramped up for killing, and they do their job very well. I've got no gripes really to say. It's got good coverage, you've got plasma coverage, you've got melta coverage, you've got pure flames and obscuring the entire map for your entire teammate to be a dick coverage. You've got the heavy bolter for like range and spraying down range with bolter fire. This feels amazing to use as well. You've got everything you could ever want as a heavy class, so take that as you will. And also you've got really decent heroic coverage. The heavy bolter's got a heroic, the plasma incinerator's got heroic. I guess the multi-melta or the pyre cannon do not, but I mean these two feel really good. The heavy plasma incinerator heroic is my favorite variant for the plasma incinerator. Some people may disagree because you don't get charge shots, but I think charge shots are, you know, not the best. The major downside to running it is just the perk tree focuses a lot of perks on charge shots, and having them taken away completely kind of negates some perks that solely focus on charge shots. But I mean, it's just so strong that I just think it's not not that big of a deal. Yeah, and then of course the heavy bolter heroic is just beloved. So yeah, there's nothing bad to say there. I think that it's got perfect coverage. They could add no more weapons to the heavy and I'd be pretty damn content. And then we've got the secondaries. We got the gold standard bolt pistol and heavy bolt pistol. Then we get the beloved plasma pistol and the inferno pistol. This is like the god tier standard for secondary lineups because it doesn't have that waste of space, the neo-volkite pistol. So yeah, you've got basically the plasma pistol is amazing always. It always has been, and it probably always will be, at least until they change it to be more melee focused to restore contested health over ranged damage. But as long as ranged damage is the supreme leader of regenerating CHP, the plasma pistol is always going to be god tier. The Inferno pistol is decent at that. The major downside to this is the gun strike damage is low, but it makes up for that with a lot of AoE damage. Can be very useful. I don't really think that this is the best choice or even the second best choice. I'd probably say this is the last choice that you need for the heavy, because you just have a ground stomp that you can just do back to back infinitely, which is basically like, sure, it may not be doing as much damage as an Inferno pistol, but if you're using the Inferno pistol to primarily take out like, you know, hordes of Minoris, 2 ground stomps is going to do the same thing for free. So you could just take like a plasma pistol to regenerate a shit ton of CHP, or a heavy bolt pistol firepower variant for the exact same reason. The Retribution's Bequest actually does take a full circle here and shine on this class, because you've got such good primary options that you don't really need to rely on your secondary as often. So having the Retribution's Bequest and the low ammo that comes with it isn't the biggest deal, because you've got other major weapons that can kind of cover that ground. So can be very useful. I don't really use this thing that much myself personally, but for those who love it, this is one of those classes that it definitely shines on. My favorite would be the firepower variant heavy bolt pistol, or the fire rate variant plasma pistol. You also can definitely make good use of the regular bolt pistol here, especially in the form of the heroic. This thing is very universal, very versatile. You can use this thing very comfortably, and it's got good ammo economy, so decent secondary to rely on. Yeah, and of course you don't have a melee weapon for the heavy, and that's supposed to be like the balancing for, you know, having so much firepower in your arsenal. But then they said, fuck it, why don't we add an infinite trample stomp instead? And so I think the heavy, like, this could be a hot take, sure, maybe not, but I think the heavy kind of has like one of like the best kits available, in the sense of it takes away your melee weapon as a balancing factor, but then you also have like pretty strong melee capabilities. You're obviously not going to compete with like a Power Fist Bulwark or a Thunderhammer Assault in the terms of melee damage, but when it comes to horde clear and being surrounded by Minoris, 2 or 3 stomps, and you're just stagger locking them and throwing them around like nothing. They're just ragdolling, and 2 or 3 stomps, you're killing them. And every single time you stomp, you're gonna put a Minoris into a gun strike, which helps keep your armor topped up immensely. Sure, your melee isn't going to be super good against Majoris enemies, but that's why you've literally got the heavy fucking bolter, and the plasma incinerator, and the multi-melta. Like, why are you concerned about Majoris as as a heavy class? You shouldn't be. So this class serves every single thing that it needs, and it covers all of its weaknesses within its own arsenal just as it is. So nothing bad to say at all. I'm super happy with how the heavy is. The heavy is like one of my favorite classes, maybe top 3. I'd say I go Vanguard, Sniper, then heavy as my top classes that I like to play personally. Maybe heavy and sniper are tied even, because I kind of toss up between which one is second and third for me personally. But so super good, super versatile. I think a lot of people kind of turn away from this class because they do love the melee centric combat that Space Marine 2 offers, but like, give it a try, man. You know, the stomp is very valuable. And if you're on missions like Inferno or Decapitation, where you hold out against swarms of Tyranids that come up those ledges, if you just pick a ledge where they come up and they primarily swarm around, and you just stomp, 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 you are there infinitely stomping and just killing them before they even get up. It's ridiculous. So, you know, heavy mains and people that are versed in heavy definitely know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you're not, I recommend you go and give it a chance. I always recommend that everybody gives every class a chance and doesn't particularly stick to a main, because the main, and then the main is kind of like the killer of the fun in this game sometimes. You know, if you just stick to one class and then you're wondering why this game starts to feel so stale, maybe go and play literally any of the other classes and the various ways that they have to offer to play, and maybe it would kind of spruce it up for you. So, not to just make you guys catch a stray and give you shit out of nowhere, but come on, man, go play a different class, go have fun. And if you're playing it for just because you leveled up a class like really high and now you don't want to go back to a low level class, I guess I kind of understand, but like, you're just going to keep getting stuck in the same loop if you don't make the effort to go and level up another class. So just go and do it, you know, go and do it. Yeah, you do it. Anyways, so perk tree, or we'll go ahead into the ability here. We got the Iron Halo. I love the Iron Halo, I really do. Obviously, it kind of is shitty that the Bulwark basically gets this for free with a 100% uptime. I think that the Iron Halo would be a lot more useful if you were able to like put it in a full circle around you, like a big ball. I don't really think that definitely isn't like canon. I'm pretty sure the Iron Halo always, even in like all the lore, only covers in front of you, but it does kind of suck that the Bulwark shield kind of just blocks all range projectiles in like an almost 180 degree arc in front of him anyways. I've had situations where I'm blocking things in front of me with the Bulwark, and things like literally like 90 degrees to my left are shooting me, and it still counts as pinging off my shield. So pretty busted that you need a whole ability here to mimic a fraction of the Bulwark's power in that sense. But you also need to remember that the kind of balance to that as well is that you can have the shield up and blocking ranged attacks, but also shoot back, which is kind of like a big incentive. So that is nice. So a powerful barrier blocks all ranged damage, and your starting perk when Iron Halo is active, all squad members within 50 meters take 10% less damage from ranged attacks. And 50 meters is a pretty big number. You don't really see any perks that have that kind of magnitude to them. 50 meters is usually you're always going to be within 50 meters. So having your Iron Halo up all the time, or as often as you can, is you're pretty much always going to be giving your teammates that. And it is really nice that the starting perk for the Heavy is team beneficial as well, because it's in the form of all squad members, and that's not locked to a team perk. So that is really, really generous, because I think that no other class has options that benefit the entire team. So it is nice that you can kind of play a really team-centric heavy, my bad. That would be a really good team perk, though, instead of some of these, but I think that the team perks are really good for heavy anyways, as they are. So we'll get into that in a little bit, though. So starting off here, we've got Restoration. This is a gold tier setup for any perk at all, having a prerequisite of killing 7 enemies and then getting rewarded for it, and you've got a cooldown, so you need to remember to proc that every 15 seconds. You kill 7 enemies all the time, especially against Tyranids a lot in Space Marine 2, so you get a lot of value out of this all the time, and it also helps you stay alive, so very good for durability. No complaints with perks like this at all. This one I do have a gripe with. It is a really good perk. Obviously, it's locked to only the multi-melta. I think perks like this shouldn't be here. I think that this should be a perk that's in the multi-melta tree, and you shouldn't have to waste an entire slot for this. The sniper is really bad for that, where like so many core abilities they have are locked to just specific types of weapons. And we talked about that extensively, so if you're interested in going and seeing that, go check that video out. But for this one, yeah, this doesn't belong here. There needs to be something else. It's not good. I really hate perks that lock you to only one weapon and one playstyle. Very bad. Auxiliary ammunition is basically restoration, but for ammo, I think that is good, and it fits well in this line. I don't really know what else they would fit here. Maybe some kind of like healing ability would be kind of useful, like a very minutely healing ability. Like killing 7 enemies in rapid succession heals you by 5% health or something, so that you could choose between having armor regeneration, ammo regeneration, or health regeneration. That would kind of give you more of an incentive to choose based off your playstyle or your needs. Like if you didn't have a Vanguard on your team, you could take the health. If you didn't have a Bulwark on your team, you could take the armor. If you didn't have, I don't know, whatever the fuck other class helps restore ammo, I guess none of them, but if you're having trouble with your ammo, boom, take auxiliary ammunition. That kind of setup would be a lot better than having just one locked to only the multi-melta. So, then we got Thermal Boost. This is another one that kind of locks you to a specific weapon, specific playstyle. This one I kind of let go, because at least you can make a whole thermal build out of this. We talked about this with the tactical as well, but I didn't really talk too much about it. I kind of was just like, hey, tactical plasma builds is like the best setup. Why isn't everybody playing it? And then we kind of moved past that, I think. So at least this incentivizes using like a specific build. I guess is that hypocritical that I'm like, get rid of the multi-melta centric perk, but then I'm kind of gassing up the one that rewards you for just playing plasma incinerators. So maybe we get rid of this perk as well, just to keep it fair for the multi-melta. You know, this perk is ridiculously good. I love it, and I love the plasma incinerator for heavy, and this also mixed with overwhelming power is really, really fun and really strong synergy. But it does suck that this only benefits one weapon, or I guess 2 weapons, because you have the plasma pistol as well. So maybe if there was more perks that kind of like centered around using plasma, and then that would kind of do it, or at least if there were more perks that centered around using the multi-melta, but then at that point you'd have way too many perks that are so niche for just one style of playing. So I don't know. I think maybe this also gets moved to the plasma incinerator tree. This is also, I'm not like talking about the weapon trees like in depth every single weapon, because that would take absolutely forever, but remember that with the opinions that I have on this perk tree and simply just saying send thermal boost to the weapon tree, I don't mean send this as it is, because that would be really strong. If you sent thermal boost to the weapon, the plasma incinerator weapon tree solely, that would be really, really busted. This would be a really, really strong perk there. But what I mean is they need to flesh out the weapon skill trees more so that all the damage that you need to play the hardest, you know, to at least get up to the hardest difficulties the game has to offer, everything should be met. All of those needs should be met within the skill trees alongside new versatile ways to play your weapon, like discharge for the power axe, and so on and so forth, and like the double slam for the thunder hammer and things like that. All of that should be met in like a more detailed, in-depth weapon skill tree. Whether they need to make the skill tree longer and add more mastery tokens, or add like another level, so there's 3 levels to work through and have like 3 separate builds to kind of work through. That's what I mean. So I don't mean just send thermal boost right there and call it a day. I mean break this up, maybe make it a little bit weaker because this is a pretty strong thing, and then add it as a node in there to acquire later on. But I don't think this needs to be here because it's so niche to only plasma weapons. So that's it. Anyways, rant over. Fortitude, I think, is good to have here. It wouldn't make sense to have in any weapons, and it doesn't really make sense anywhere else. That could also be a decent prestige perk, but I think that it is really good to have here, you know, as like an option for survivability. Maybe here would be good to have more like other survivability ones, like if you added like a conviction perk here instead of elsewhere or something like that, could kind of like help make you choose between increased health or like a conviction perk, even though you'd always want to take fortitude anyways, because this has untold lengths of value with the damage reduction that you get for getting low HP. So you pretty much never want to toss this up unless you're playing a niche build. Like if you are playing a plasma incinerator build, you'd maybe want to go thermal boost, but you're tossing up so much durability with fortitude, it's just gross basically. That's kind of why I think that like maybe this needs a bit of a nerf, because I don't know if heavy should be with one perk as strong as a baseline bulwark. Maybe this needs a little bit of a nerf. This perk needs to go and be changed with something else, and this perk is actually okay, but I think that there needs to be more to it to really give you an incentive to want to stand in one spot. I think only 15% more contested health and not taking heavy hits is not good enough to warrant just standing in one spot. So that kind of makes fortitude the obvious choice here, and we talked about that in a couple other videos as well, that is like the killer of fun in building builds, is when you've got one perk that overshadows every other perk in the line by so much that you're never enticed to use other options. The only instance was I was enticed to use thermal boost when the heroic heavy plasma incinerator came out, because I wanted to use this and get that damage boost when I was using the plasma incinerator. I guess this is also when you have less than 50% ammo in a magazine, but that is like almost never, like unless you're using the heavy bolter and you get like really low ammo. But I find that my ammo economy is really good and you're almost never really there, so I don't know. I just feel like it's too niche. So anyways, we'll move on. Enhanced force, melee damage increases by 30%. This fucking sucks so bad. You never really, unless you're building specifically for a melee damage bulwark, and even then, you don't really need it. This is so minimal. It's like adding multipliers to almost nothing is gonna give you nothing, you know? So it's not useful, and your stomp is already useful at what it does without the extra melee damage. You know, if you're just using it for killing Minoris, then you're good. You don't need this. You don't need this or any of your melee attacks for killing Majoris, all right? Because you've already got such good primary and secondary ammo or damage coverage that you almost never need to. And if you do run out of ammo entirely and need to rely on melee fighting, you've already kind of got yourself in a pinch where you're pretty fucked anyways. You can still rely on melee as a viable option, but like don't take a whole fucking perk over it. You got so much ammo economy as a heavy that you don't need it. It's a waste. Overwhelming power is one of my favorites in this line. I think this is really good. It's got a prerequisite. You have to activate Iron Halo. It benefits all of your members, and it gives a decent buff of 10% range damage. I think that's really good. 10 meters is extremely small distance. I don't know if a lot of you guys realize that in Space Marine 2. 10 and 20 meters is pretty fucking close to you. 10 meters is very hard to make use. So this is a very selfish perk. On face value, it has the play on that you're helping the team. But I promise you that unless your teammates are glued right to your fucking side or like right behind your shield with you, you're not really getting much use out of this. And they also need to be using range damage, so you need to remember that too. So I like it. It's a good perk. You can make it work. You need to be very fucking close to do it. All right. So, okay. Versatility. I do really like versatility. It is pretty niche. I think that versatility really only shines with plasma weapons, which is why I think that this needs a rework or to go. Because if you're using a bolt pistol, say you're using the heavy bolt pistol firepower variant, that motherfucker's got 8 rounds in it. You know, you're going to be reloading that so fast, and those 8 rounds with 20% more damage ain't going to be doing too much. Yes, it's always going to be doing something, and for something like the heavy, where you switch to your secondary pretty much only when your primary is overheated or close to overheated, having the extra buff of damage is super useful, and I love versatility, and I'll pretty much always run this if I'm not running overwhelming power, but mainly when I've got a plasma pistol, because what it doesn't tell you is that you can let your weapon cool by itself, and as long as you don't like reload or switch to your primary, your plasma pistol will always have 20% more damage. So it is a very strong perk, it is super useful, but it is a little bit niche and kind of like rewards you for just playing with your secondary and then switching back. I like it a lot, I really do. I think that this perk is decent. I don't know if I would really get rid of this because it isn't locked to just plasma. It just gets the most value out of plasma pistol. So you can still use this to very good extent with like a heavy bolt pistol or a regular bolt pistol. But yeah, it's also actually kind of decent for the Melta too. You can get a little extra damage crunched in there for the Inferno pistol as well. But yeah, does it need to go? Probably not. Does it need a rework? Probably not, but I don't know. It's not always my best pick. So for the team perks, I think that the heavy here has some of the most beneficial team perks. I'm not saying the most, you know, obviously unmatched zeal and secure stockpile and squad renewal and stuff like that are all absolutely insane, but this definitely has some contenders in this lineup as well. With encompassing Aegis, all squad members take 25% less damage from range attacks, and you just get that. That's a 100% uptime. Very valuable, especially against chaos. This is like super useful. I think that team perks are really good to not have some kind of prerequisite effect. I talk about that in every single one of these videos, that it's like these perks need more depth to them. There needs to be a setup to it and then a big reward, and then it needs to go away so that you have an incentive to play around that and like, you know, incentivize builds and stuff like that. I think team perks don't really need that. Just having a stat increase for the team perk and only the team perk is essential, because sometimes your team doesn't, you know, fucking go and check what team perks they have and then want to go and play around that among their own perks. That adds a little bit too much depth. I think it is really good when there's team perks that just give you something for the whole team. So things like additional supplies just gives you the ammo. And encompassing Aegis just gives you the damage reduction. Those are good. I like those for only team perks. All right, let's be very clear. Only team perks. But there is something to be said about additional supplies, and how if you have an assault or a bulwark on your team, you are cutting the value of this by 33% or 66% based off of if you have both or one. So this is very finicky, and this isn't like a new take. I know a lot of people have already talked about this before, and you know, it's very well known. Additional supplies is very controversial because it really only works when you're playing with an assault, a vanguard, or a sniper, and that's it. That's it. Or the Tech Marine, I guess it'll work for as well when Tech Marine comes out. But still, the fact that, you know, Assault is a very beloved class and Bulwark is a very beloved class, and there's almost always at least one of them on any given strike team, you know, you're always going to be losing value on this. So it's a little bit selfish, and it can be useful for just 2 people. If you've got a tactical or a sniper, and then you've got you, and you're both getting use out of this, it can be very useful. Even though you're losing that 33% usefulness off of the assault or the bulwark, but still, it's just value that is going away. And when you're playing the highest difficulties of this game, you need to be squeezing as much value out of your perks as you possibly can. So I usually tend to take encompassing Aegis over the additional supplies, even though it does feel nice to have like 700, 800 rounds for a heavy bolter, or like over 100 rounds or close to 100 rounds for your plasma ensign. It's just, yeah, it's not worth losing out on team value for sometime, because after all, it is a team perk. So make sure you're using this to its full extent if you're using it. And then Bonds of Brotherhood, this is one of those ones that's controversial because it rewards your, it basically gives you the reward of the perk for your team playing bad, and a lot of people don't like perks that do that. I don't entirely agree with that. I think Bonds of Brotherhood has so much value You know, especially on higher difficulties, if you even have a couple of stims spread around the team, you can get rid of mortals so fast, and having teammates go on cooldown for that long on high difficulties, and then you get smacked by a heavy wave, or a massive heavy wave, or an extremist pack and a terminus, you know, having your brothers at full battle capability with full health and no mortal wound is extremely valuable. And yes, some matches you will play with this and you won't get a single use of it, but other matches you'll play with it and you'll get like 9 or 10 uses of it. Like that, and you know, that's a pretty big stretch, but when those games happen, it's insane. I've got a video on my channel. I encourage you to go check it out. I can't remember what it's titled, but it's like Bonza Brotherhood saved this hard stratagem run or something. And we had a heavy teammate. It wasn't even me using it who bought Bonza Brotherhood. And I think early in the gameplay, I say, Bonza Brotherhood's not that great, you know, pretty situational, yada yada. And then we go through the entire game where we all use all 10 of our stims from the stratagem. It's the one that gives you 10 stims at the beginning. We all use all 10 of our stims, and then we still manage to win, and it's majorly because of Bonza Brotherhood. Bonza Brotherhood made that happen, and I kind of got a newfound respect for it, because yes, yeah, you're not always going to get use out of this. Maybe even sometimes you're only getting 1 or 2 uses of this per game, but sometimes this makes or breaks games, and so I don't ever, you know, look down on people who bring Bonza Brotherhood. This thing can save runs, and I've seen it firsthand. So, let's move on here. So we got Adamant Will. After Iron Halo deactivates, you take 20% less health damage for 10 seconds. This is just an on-demand conviction. I love perks like this. Sniper has one as well that makes it so that when you leave Camo Cloak, you get the same effect, because it is just basically taking the conviction perk, but it's putting it in your hands as opposed to letting it happen passively. I love conviction. I think conviction's a gold standard perk on any class that has it, but I think that when classes have perks like this that tie into being able to activate it manually, especially when it's centered around their abilities, I think that this is much more intriguing. It's just much more fun. You can set up better builds with it. You can get more use out of it because you're triggering it when you really need it. So definitely top of the line there. Another really good one, Consecutive Execution. I think Consecutive Execution is a gold tier perk on any class that has it. I know Vanguard has it. I know, who else has it? There's another one that has it. I think Assault, is it? I don't know. But I know that there's multiple classes that have this, and it's always gold tier for every single one. Anything that, you know, you probably heard it a million times, anything that breaks the pickup economy, blah, 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 is the best. It is. It's that way for a reason. Pattern of Excellence for Sniper is absolutely busted because you get 30-second melt-a-bombs. You know, it's like that for a reason. These things are extremely powerful, and they are a gold standard perk. They give you a prerequisite to meet, killing 7 enemies, in rapid succession, mind you, and then rewards you. You get your equipment charge like a good little boy that you are, and then it goes on cooldown, so you need to remember to proc that every 90 seconds to get the most use out of it, and if you are getting the most use out of it, you are getting so much value, so you need to be paying attention. That is what makes perks like this so damn good and so damn awesome. Then we move over to Emperor's Protection. I think this perk kind of sucks. It's pretty niche. It's got really good idea to it. It's got a good prerequisite to meet. It gives you a good reward for it, really good reward for it, in the form of 1 armor segment for all squad members. But how often are you actually getting your Iron Halo to expend all of its energy? Probably not as often as you think, because more times than not, your Iron Halo is going to be disabled not when it's out of energy. You're either going to disable it manually on your own, prematurely, or it's gonna get shot by, you know, a Tyrannid or a fucking, I don't know, like a heretic chaos cultist or whatever, those little ones that hit you with the little sniper shot that do your entire health bar for some reason, even though they're a minion and they're 1 tap, which I don't think should be allowed, but that's not for this video. So I barely get any use out of this. The only way that I find getting good use out of this is when you mix it with Wrath of the Imperium and you mix it with this one here, the Bastion. I hate that first word, obdurate Bastion. I've never heard that word and I don't know what it means. So mind my illiteracy, but that's like the only way, because I know a lot of people really like running the power regulator, and I think that this is the best. But if you're trying to make it so that your Iron Halo is going to make it all the way through its durability, you almost need this, unless you're actively avoiding damage, which is super counterintuitive of how you're supposed to play the Heavy and the Iron Halo in general. This is the only way most of the time that you're going to get that all the way down. And then if you're going to make use of Wrath of the Imperium, you need to be running into combat where things are going to be shooting your shield. So if you take something like Field Adjustment and your durability is reduced by 20%, your shield's gonna fucking pop before you get into an ideal spot. Wrath of the Imperium's gonna pop, it's gonna get fucking wasted. This is gonna pop and is going to get value, mind you, because every teammate benefits from it. But, no, it won't pop because we're talking about, sorry, I got carried away there and lost where we were going with that conversation. But if you've got this, you're going to be running into combat, your thing's going to break, and you're not going to get Wrath of the Imperium, and you're not going to get Emperor's Protection because it broke before it ran out of charge. It needs to fully run out of its durability. So yeah, I find that it's really only viable when you're running with this one here, and even then, because you're a heavy and you're hardly ever in melee range unless you're fighting minions like hordes of Hormagaunts, Termagaunts, things like that, that Wrath of the Imperium gets almost no value. This is kind of like a wannabe Radiating Impact, but just so much fucking worse. I struggle to get any value out of this because the only way to get tons of value out of this is if you run into combat and then don't fight. And you know what that gets you? Fucking dead is what it gets you. So it's just, yeah, it's not worth it. Anyways, let's move on because that was a bit of a tangent rant there. But yes, you can get good use out of this, but you need to remember that it's only when Iron Halo expends all of its energy. So be very mindful of that. So the Bastion perk here, Iron Halo's durability increases by 20%. This is good. It's perfectly fine. It's not necessarily super interesting. None of these perks here are like super interesting, but it gets the job done, and it basically gives you a good benefit. It would be nice. I think that this does have a good place to be here for just because of what the heavy's ability is. I know I've given other classes shit for just giving just like a stat increase of some kind, but I think that this does belong because Iron Halo doesn't have like crazy ways to play around it. You just always have to use it and then have it on you. There's not like wacky things you can kind of really do with it. It would be cool to have like more in-depth perks to kind of change the way you play, but having just Iron Halo's durability increased by 20% complements other perks that otherwise don't really get much value, so we're going to kind of let that one slide. Field Adjustment, I do think, is really good, especially if you're using like a, Adamant Will. If you run Field Adjustment with Adamant Will, you can basically get on-demand Conviction and then recharge it 20% faster because it's not really about keeping your shield up for very long. Mind you though, if you're running this build here, because you're not planning on keeping your shield up for very long, using Conversion Field and Overwhelming Power and also your basic ability that you get, your starting perk, is going to get a lot less use by using it this way. So you're going to get some selfish durability in the form of on-demand Conviction, but you're also not making use of a lot of other really powerful perks that you have in your arsenal, so do keep that in mind. Power Regulator, I think, is my favorite and all-time gold standard here. Iron Halo loses energy 20% more slowly, as opposed to giving you perks like Field Adjustment that recharge you faster. This one allows you to have a 20% longer uptime, which is almost the same if you think about it. You know, you're getting this back 20% faster, but you're also, this one you're losing 20%. So it's not exactly the same. Actually, it is quite different. But this one synergizes with a lot of perks that the Heavy has in its arsenal that are really, really good. So every single perk that I just said there, Overwhelming Power, your starting perk, and Conversion Field, and even the other good signature offensive capability, this one synergizes extremely well with. It just doesn't synergize with the other quote-unquote top-tier perks of the bottom here, because you're basically making it so that your Iron Halo is not draining all of its power by 20%, so it's draining 20% more slowly, which means that you're proccing this less, and there's also less chance of you proccing this because there's a higher chance of your shield being either deactivated by you in a panic or being shot and disabled by other enemies in that 20% gap where it normally would have ended. So Wrath of the Imperium's losing a ton of value, Emperor's Protection's losing a ton of value, so do keep that in mind. That Power Regulator is really only good if you run it with other perks that benefit you for keeping your shield up and don't reward you for running it out of energy. Then we've got Saving Grace. Reviving a squad member fully restores Iron Halo's charge and all armor segments. This one is one that I will give to you guys that don't like perks that reward your team for going down. This one kind of sucks. It's really kind of niche in the fact of it can see value, especially if you use Iron Halo to actually get the revive off. Like if you're taking a ton of ranged fire from snipers and devourers, Tyranid warrior with devourers, and things like that, you can pop your ability, your Iron Halo, basically face them, get the revive, and then it's going to fully restore you and your armor segments, kind of rewarding you for taking that risky plunge. And then if you've got Bonds of Brotherhood, you pick them up at full health, so they're kind of already back in the fight. So definitely can be really useful, but this is one where I feel like, if you're having to use your entire ability to go and get the revive, maybe it isn't particularly worth it. It is kind of good. If you're running like a full-on Saving Grace, Bonds of Brotherhood, save your teammates when they go down build, yes, absolutely very good. But this is one that I kind of tend to pass on for the fact of I don't really like perks that give me an incentive to, like, I should be able to go and revive my teammate without having a further incentive, and I feel like this just isn't really good enough. I feel like that's not enough. I don't know. Maybe that's a little harsh, but I tend to not really take this. I think that there's better options. Brute Force, when Iron Halo is on cooldown, range damage increases by 15%. This is one of those noob trap perks where it basically incentivizes you to always have your Iron Halo up when you, just the moment that you have it, just so that you could be getting this range damage increase. I do have a tendency actually to run this one. I hate the other ones that I've talked about in other videos. This is the only one that I let fly because of overwhelming power here, which gives me a damage buff when it's up, and then this one over here that gives me a damage buff when it's down. So I'm always having a damage buff up. It's not the craziest damage buff, and they don't stack together, obviously, but it basically makes it so that I'm buffed up on damage no matter what I'm doing, and then that does give me a good incentive to use Iron Halo and use something like Conversion Field to be charging up my teammates' abilities and things like that as well. So I think that that's decent. Lots of people don't like it, and I think that that's okay. I would even dare say that Saving Grace could sometimes get more value than Brute Force sometimes, so it's kind of up to you. Do you want to be like a team player support build? Do you want a little bit more damage when you don't have your ability up? I just think that this is nice. You get that extra range damage. It helps contest more CHP when you don't have a shield and you're vulnerable. It kind of just protects you a little bit. And also, kills things faster, obvious, is the biggest draw point to that. Obviously, you're going to kill things 15% faster or more efficiently while you don't have your shield up. So, kind of just helps you stay safe and stay healthy. And then you've got my famously hated perk, Wrath of the Imperium. This thing fucking sucks. It sounds good in theory. It sounds like an on-demand radiating impact like Tactical has. It's not. If you manage to get use out of this, good for you. You can definitely make this work, but I just feel like it's so niche. It requires too much setup, and in the time that it takes for you to actually run into combat, stand in the middle of everything and get the most value out of it, either your shield is broke and you're fucked, or you could have just killed everything with a multi-multa anyways and been perfectly fine and not needed this. So I think this thing stinks. This is a big stinker perk. I think that it needs to change to if you detonate it, if you manually detonate or disable your Iron Halo, then Wrath of the Imperium activates so that you can run in when you're ready, deactivate it manually, cut it prematurely, and then blow everything up, and then add a cooldown on it, because otherwise that would be really, really busted. If you could just do that every single time, add like a minute cooldown or like a 90-second cooldown, so that like Radiating Impact has, and then that would make this really fucking good, and then not too strong because you've got a cooldown on it. So yeah, I don't know, take that with a grain of salt. So moving into the signatures, I think offensive capability is one of the better ones. When Iron Halo is active, you deal damage over time. This one synergizes really, really well with the power regulator and doing a build that kind of buffs your team the longer you keep your Iron Halo on, and then also keeps you protected by dealing damage to everything around you. Doesn't always get the most use because, again, you've got so many strong weapons in your arsenal that you're going to be killing enemies close to you anyways, and 5 meters is not a lot. Things have to be so fucking close to you that it's not even really funny. 5 meters is such a small distance. So this perk is, take it with a grain of salt. It's not super useful. You need to be really, really close to actually make it useful. Probably actually dodge this one most of the time. I'm kind of on the fly changing my opinion. It's just because once upon a time I was a big user of offensive capability. I thought that it was the best, But then I kind of figured out how strong Conversion Field was mixed with Power Regulator and being able to keep your shield up for a really long time. And then I figured out how small 5 meters actually is, and that kind of is a killer of the perk. So once upon a time, I thought this was like really good. It was kind of like how the Bulwark had the offensive capability for the banner and dealt damage within its radius. But 5 meters is such a small, inconsequential amount of distance that it's not going to get as much value as you may think it does. I still like it, I still use it, but you need to make sure that you are really in the thick of combat to see good use out of that. And then we've got Coolant Reserve. This one absolutely is dog butt cheeks, dude. Yes, dog butt cheeks, you heard me correctly. If both of your squad members are incapacitated, defeated, or grabbed, your primary weapon will not overheat and you deal 15% more damage. That's pretty fucking inconsequential buff for having your entire team, like, incapped. Can it come into use if it does happen? Yes. How often are both of your teammates actually dead? And you're still up and fighting to make good use out of this. You know, if your entire team gets incapped in a short period of time, you're probably next, buddy. And I don't think 15% more damage is really going to save you. Like, if it happens that quick, then you guys got butt fucked by, like, a Terminus and terrible spawns of Extremists or something like that, you know? Like, something catastrophic happened that's probably a run ending that Coolant Reserve probably isn't going to pull back for you. You know, like, at that point, like, I'm not saying don't try, but in that case of it happening, it's not looking pretty fucking good for you. And Coolant Reserve isn't a big enough impact that it's gonna really save your ass, I don't think. So I don't really like that perk. And my favorite, or at least my new favorite conversion field, obviously, when Iron Halo is active, all squad members within 20 meters regenerate ability charge 50% faster, mixed with your power regulator over here to keep that up for 20% longer. 20 meters is... Again, any amount of meters, I promise, isn't nearly as many as you think it is in-game, but 20 meters is fairly sizable, enough that you can stay within range decently when you've got teammates running all over the place doing their own thing. Melee fighting, you can kind of at least manage with 20 meters, and ability recharge at 50% is pretty damn useful, especially when you mix it with this and you keep that up for as long as possible. So overall, I think Heavy is in a pretty damn good spot. I think some perks need to go. Some of these perks that are just too specific need to go. Some perks need a little bit of a buff, a little bit of a rework. Again, I think that just in general, if there's one major message for any of these videos that I've kind of given, it's just that the tree needs to be reworked in general. The perks need to be reworked. Signature needs to be more impactful, have something to do with significantly altering the way your ability worked. And then the gear needs to have some, all of these need to have like kind of how they do have it, you know, minor ways that impact the way that you play and the way that you set up and the way that you use your ability. Core needs to be more in-depth, less specific. It needs less specific coverage and it needs more general coverage and it needs more perks that have, you know, a prerequisite to meet. You need to do something to activate a reward and then have like a cooldown or have it active for a certain amount of time, and then you need to re-up that ability just so that it's more interesting to use. It kind of like gives you something to look for, gives you an ability to proc in combat and then to remember to re-proc it when it goes away or comes off of cooldown, just for more in-depth and for you know, for building and things like that. And then, you know, the prestige perk tree is going to be the same that I've talked about in the other ones, where things like melee damage increase just needs to go, perfect parry block window, whatever the fuck needs to go. You know, the equipped weapons maximum spread probably needs to go. Conviction needs to just go in the regular tree. Auxiliary reload actually is good. I think that can belong, but Indomitable Spirit can also belong. I think that this is a good one, and that's probably why it's in most prestige perk trees, is just because it actually does fit. But there just needs to be more options here that significantly alter the way that you play, whether it's like the your ability or like, I don't know, just like something, or just like something that complements the way that Heavy should be playing, like more team support perks, or like more perks that make it so that when you've got Iron Halo active, it benefits the whole team, or it's like, I don't know, anything, literally anything other than just like melee damage increases by 100, stomp area of effect increases by 50%, perfect parry, like this is just stat increases. And like, if you're gonna have these, fucking throw exponential force and reverberating impact into the tree, get rid of enhanced force or something, and like make it so that there's like a string of perks that you can take to actually make a dedicated build without prestige perks. And then, you know, also have different variants and things like that, so that you've got like the Wrath of the Imperium build mixed with mixed with Emperor's Protection, so that you've got that style of playing. And then you've got the field adjustment, so that you've got the this plus adamant will way of playing. And then you've got the melee way of playing. And then you've got like a heavy gunner artillery way of playing with like more ammo, like auxiliary ammunition mixed with additional supplies. You know, like make different builds that support a specific way of playing, and then have like 4 or 5 of those for every class. I know that that's a lot to ask for, but that's what needs to happen. That's what needs to change. I think that a lot of people feel that way, and I know a lot of people have like different ideas and stuff that we didn't like cover in here that would be like really good ideas as well. So feel free to share those in the comments if you have them and all that fun stuff. You know, share in the comments what you thought the good, the bad, and the reworked need to be for the heavy class. But that is going to be the end of the video. We've ranted long enough. I appreciate having you here. And if you've watched all of these videos, thanks for coming along for the ride, for all the things that I hate and do really like about the different classes. I think that it would be really awesome to see a rework for like the weapon trees to be more in-depth, to meet the needs that the weapon needs, to hit the highest difficulties of like absolute comfortably, you know, maybe add more of a challenge to actually get there and like level up the weapons. Maybe make it a little bit longer too. Maybe you need to get more XP to get more mastery tokens, and it's getting harder and harder to get that XP, so that you need to play to level up your weapons. Make the weapon trees a little bit more in-depth to reward you, so that by having the extra increases in damage, it's not just like super easy to get there. You need to actually put effort in, like the prestige system. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe add a weapon prestige so that you have a reason to keep on resetting your weapon and getting a new weapon perk, and then using that weapon more instead of just hitting relic tier and then having it at relic tier forever. Maybe that would be a good way of doing it. But something needs to change for sure. I still have fun. Don't take these videos as a I don't like Space Marine, this, that, and the other thing. This game is like my fucking forever baby. I always will come back to this game and love it all the same. But these are just my thoughts about how it could be better, you know, what the community really would like to see, and how you can make it so that there's more replayability value and it's not as stale with the current prestige system that we have. And all of that stuff. So anyways, video done. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. Take care, and I hope to catch you in another video sometime soon. Goodbye.